Family finally found Book 1, After the Dust Settles, Chapter 6, A Chat with Carl. As the boys traveled through the forest, Knuckles felt some of the tension in his shoulders fade. These surroundings reminded him of his home, before everything went wrong, before his tribe marched to that last battle, before he was alone. He inhaled the scents around him, sap, pine needles, and earth. It was familiar and soothing.
Okay, guys?
The hedgehog said, holding an arm out.
You gotta watch where you step around here. Sometimes he puts traps down.
The words had no sooner left the boy's mouth when his foot triggered a hidden bear trap. His super speed allowed him to pull away before he could be impaled by the rusty teeth, and he heaved a sigh.
See what I mean?
Tails nodded, and simply took to the air to avoid any additional dangers. Knuckles furrowed his brow, dragging his eyes across the ground around him. He cursed his lack of focus, and easily picked out another 4 traps nearby.
Where are you leading us, Hedgehog?
The Echidna rumbled, his muzzle wrinkled in agitation.
It's an enemy you failed to defeat.
Sonic cast a quick glance over his shoulder at the older boy, his face twisted with annoyance.
He's not an enemy. He's just a little paranoid.
These traps are obviously designed to bring down large prey.
Tails noted as the Echidna gingerly stepped around another toothy trap.
What's in these woods to need such defenses?
Fair.
The hedgehog said with a shrug.
Honestly don't know what he's scared of, but he's really not a bad guy when you get to know him.
The Echidna and hedgehog stepped lightly for a few minutes, making their way to the edge of the trees, with Tails hovering close by. The light was growing brighter now. As they neared a clearing where a small metal structure stood, Sonic lifted a hand and called out to an old man outside the building, sporting a scraggly beard and dressed in overalls. The hedgehog waved and the man turned, lifting something in his hands. Knuckles startled when he saw what it was.
Get down!
He boomed, shoving Sonic and Tails to the ground before he sprinted toward the enemy.
Knuckles, don't.
The hedgehog called, and a blue blur zipped past him to stand in front of the man.
Stop. Don't hurt him. It's okay.
The Echidna skidded to a halt, hands curled into fists.
He has a weapon.
Sonic shifted positions, holding a calming hand toward Knuckles and turning to the man behind him.
Carl, I'm pretty sure Tom told you not to carry the shotgun around anymore.
The old man's face scrunched up in what could only be described as a pout.
Come on, Carl. You're upsetting the nice Echidna who could break you in half with his pinky.
Man's got a right to defend what's his.
The man Carl said, but he lowered the business end of the shotgun toward the ground.
Can't trust nobody in this world.
Ironically, Knuckles could appreciate the man's position. He lowered his fists.
Begone, we are not here to steal from you, old man.
He paused, casting a sideways glance to Sonic.
Why are we here?
I just wanted you guys to meet the only person who knew about me long before anyone else.
Tails had joined them, and Sonic moved to gesture toward the man with a flourish.
Guys, meet Carl, suspicious recluse, but darn observant when it comes to a certain handsome little blue devil.
Tails cocked an eyebrow.
Blue devil?
That's what he called me before he knew what I was.
Sonic said, puffing his chest out.
Tried to catch me a bunch of times, but never came close.
Kept setting off all my traps.
Carl muttered.
Took me ages to set him up and he set them all off in seconds.
That's not surprising.
Tails said with a grin.
Takes more than a few earth traps to catch Sonic the Hedgehog.
I caught the hedgehog easily.
Knuckles said, and Sonic's face pulled into a frown.
But you had help.
The hedgehog grumbled.
And ambushed me at home.
Knuckles frowned back at the hedgehog. There was that mood shift again. Sonic wasn't looking at him, but the boy's whole demeanor changed. He seemed more guarded. It would seem Knuckles couldn't say anything with. Tails looked back and forth between the two older boys, his ears flicking backward, the fur on the back of his neck prickled. Knuckles glared at Sonic, and the hedgehog stood with his arms crossed, looking at the ground. There was an anger in the air between them, almost visible to the young kid on this warm April morning. Being on the receiving end of anger for most of his young life made the kid extremely sensitive to this type of negative energy. Even if it wasn't directed at him, it'd still make his stomach clench. Tails wasn't exactly sure what the problem was between the other boys, so he did the only thing he could think of, create a distraction.
Hello.
He said, his voice almost over the top friendly.
I'm Tails, Sonic's friend.
The little kid held his hand out to Carl, who looked at it almost suspiciously.
Carl.
The man grunted, taking the boy's hand in a firm shake.
You're a fox, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
The man nodded, looking the boy up and down.
Just a kid, younger than the devil here.
The fox pulled himself up to his full height, which in all honesty wasn't that much taller.
Sonic's older, yes, but I can take care of myself.
Uh-huh.
The man tilted his head and looked behind the kid.
All foxes on your planet got two tails.
Tails swallowed, flicking his ears back, curling in on himself slightly. He pulled his tails behind him, frizzing them together to mask their number. It was an automatic response when someone mentioned them.
Oh, no, sir. Just me.
Sonic and Knuckles had turned to look at the little kid, their previous anger forgotten. At least the distraction worked, but now they were looking at him. They were all looking at him, and he was starting to regret this whole idea. His muzzle burned in a blush. Carl nodded again, eyes narrowed.
Take it you had problems cause of them. Others didn't like them.
Tails drooped his head, his ears flattened. He curled his fist against his chest.
Yes.
Yet this idea was a huge mistake. Calling attention to himself almost always resulted in the focus shifting to his tails, and it always reminded him of what made him different, what made him a freak.
Hey.
Sonic said, resting a hand on the kid's shoulder.
It's okay. Buddy.
Eyes burning, Tails clamped them shut. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Not in front of Sonic, not in front of Knuckles.
Ain't okay.
Carl said, shaking his head.
Ain't okay at all.
Tails opened his eyes as Sonic turned to the old man.
Carl, he's just.
The man pointed toward Tails.
Look at him. The boy was picked on 'cause he was different and okay.
He looked at the fox.
Treated you mean, didn't they? Probably laughed at ya, made jokes about ya behind your back.
The kid nodded.
Yeah, that's what them some folks do when something's different. Make fun, laugh, ignore.
Carl spat to the side and placed a raw hand on Tails' head.
Take it from someone who was laughed at for years. Cat, don't you listen to any of them. Most folk don't see what's right in front of them. Too blind by what's normal. So's anything that's not is something to be afraid of and called weird. It's not weird. Different maybe. Special, even, but not weird.
But they are weird.
Tails said, his voice soft.
No one else has two tails.
Carl shrugged.
That's just how you were born is all. Might be weird to others, but that's on them. This is just how you're supposed to be. If they can't handle that.
He lifted his shoulders in another shrug.
It says more about them than you.
Exactly.
Sonic said, turning back to Tails.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but Carl's making a lot of sense. Forget what everyone back there thought. They just couldn't handle your awesomeness.
Knuckles nodded.
Agreed. Well, we can travel back to your village. You and Fox.
he said, slamming a fist into an open hand.
I would face any who dare belittle you. They would suffer by my too.
Sonic said, nodding.
No, nobody picks on my little buddy.
And I'd give him one of these.
Carl said, lifting his shotgun. Sonic and Knuckles moved in front of Tails as the hedgehog lifted his hands.
Carl, put it away, dude.
Despite the possible danger, Tails laughed. Truth be told, he felt a little better. What Carl said had made a lot of sense, and so far, no one on this planet had made any negative comments regarding his extra tail. Everyone had simply accepted him. It felt good to be part of something, to have friends, even if Sonic and Knuckles seemed to have some sort of anger toward each other simmering beneath the surface. But maybe it would work itself out soon, he hoped. Once the man had put his weapon in the house, Knuckles felt more comfortable. He introduced himself, and upon hearing his name, Carl had said,
Yeah, that fits.
It confused the Echidna, but no matter. The man didn't seem dangerous, odd, but not a threat.
Why do you place traps around your home?
The Echidna asked as he gathered some firewood. Sonic had said they would probably have some chores to do for the man. As he was old and sometimes needed help, even if he refused to admit it, he and Tails were currently gathering trash from the nearby yard.
Are you anticipating an enemy attack?
The old man did a cursory look left and right before leaning closer to the boy.
Gotta be ready for anything.
He said, his voice low.
You never know what's out there in those woods. The Blue Devil ran around for nearly 10 years before anyone believed me, and here you and that fox are now. Who knows what else could come from another planet?
He paused, tipping his head toward the Echidna.
No offense.
I am not offended. There are great enemies on other worlds. I fear your planet would not fare well were they to come here.
That's why I always keep watch.
Carl said, tapping a finger against his temple.
People are too distracted with their phones and YouTube and Starbucks to see what's going on around them. Wouldn't see an attack coming till it's too late.
Knuckles nodded.
You have the heart of a warrior.
The old man barked out a laugh.
Nah, I just try to keep an eye on things, try to keep my town safe.
His face soared.
Even if they don't believe anything I say.
But you were right about the hedgehog.
The boy said, an eyebrow cocked.
Surely that would make others listen.
Carl waved a dismissive hand.
Not likely. Once a delusional paranoid recluse, always a delusional paranoid recluse.
Knuckles lowered his head.
Well, I shall listen. Tell me of your concerns, and I will investigate them. I too would like to protect Tuatong.
The man looked down at the Echidna, a small smile behind his bushy beard.
I might take you up on that, boy.
They worked in silence for a few minutes, Knuckles carrying armloads of firewood, and Carl helping to stack them properly.
So what's your story?
Carl asked, casting a look at the Echidna from the corner of his eye. Knuckles cocked an eyebrow.
My story.
Yeah, what are ya? Where ya from? How do you get here? That kinda stuff.
The boy hefted another half-dozen logs onto the stack.
I am an Echidna warrior. I come from a planet far from here, and am the last of my kind.
Carl shook his head.
Echidna, never heard of it, but the last one. Kinda young to be all alone. Some kinda war take the others.
The Echidna furrowed his brow.
My tribe fought an old enemy.
He looked toward the hedgehog, who laughed with Tails in the yard.
I was not the only one who lost everything that day.
The old man followed the boy's gaze and gave a slight nod.
So what brings you to Earth?
Knuckles paused.
I thought that
The man snorted.
Son, if you were counting on the Blue Devil leading you somewhere, that's a laugh, but we couldn't find his own tail with 2 hands and a detailed map.
The absurdity of the expression made Knuckles chuckle, and the mental image it conjured made him laugh harder.
you are very funny.
Carl
Helps to have an audience who never heard the jokes before.
He looked out at the hedgehog, who tossed an empty beer can into the trash bag Tails held open.
Kidding aside, he's a good kid, glad he could help you find what you were looking for.
Knuckles furrowed his brow. The truth was a little more complicated than that, but he didn't feel like correcting the man. He walked away to fetch more firewood, not noticing Carl had followed. When he returned with another armload, Knuckles found the old man standing nearby, watching him with narrowed eyes.
Some bad blood between the two of you?
He asked, hands tucked inside the front of his overalls. He nodded at Knuckles' questioning look.
Yeah, I seen the way you two look back there, like you was ready to throw hands at each other. What's that about?
The Echidna turned, tossing the new wood onto the stack.
It is nothing.
Did it look like nothing?
Knuckles pulled his lips tight. In truth, he didn't know what to say. He had an idea of what was bothering the hedgehog, but what good did it do to talk about? And based on this morning, anything Knuckles said, as innocent as it seemed to him, annoyed Sonic.
Look,
Carl said, straightening a few crook logs.
it's none of my business. But here's the thing about bad blood. It don't go away. It festers, poisoning everything around it. So you either have it out and deal with it head on, or you let grow and kill whatever could have been.
The Echidna looked back toward Sonic and Tails, his brow furrowed.
Does talking really help?
Carl shrugged.
Most troubles can be avoided if it's talked out early, but lots of times people just assume things and let their hurt feelings call the shots.
He hunkered down, wobbling slightly as he did so, and Knuckles held a hand out to steady the man.
And talking only works if the other feller's ready to listen.
Knuckles cast his eyes to the side as he thought.
You are wise.
The old man wheezed out a laugh as he struggled to pull himself upright. Knuckles offered his hand in support.
Kid, I've been on this planet for going on 72 years, and I ain't never been called wise. I'm just passing on some of the things I learned in that time, is all.
Then thank you for your life wisdom, Elder Carl.
Well, I suppose it's better than Crazy Carl.
The man said, shaking his head. Knuckles returned to stacking the firewood, still mulling over what Carl had said. Perhaps he should speak to the hedgehog about this bad blood between them when he was ready.
Is something up between you and Knuckles?
Tails asked as Sonic landed another empty can in the trash bag. The kid glanced over his shoulder at the Echidna in question, who was chatting with Carl near the firewood stack. The hedgehog froze, his eyes wide. Was his problem with Knuckles that apparent? He pulled his mouth into a crook smile.
What were you talking about? There's nothing up. Everything's fine. Definitely nothing up here.
Tails lifted an eyebrow.
Really? Because you two seem to be kind of shooting daggers at each other a little while ago.
Sonic shrugged, bending over to pick up a candy bar wrapper.
How could you tell? The guy always looks angry. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe it's a war thing.
Okay.
The kid said, brow furrowing.
So, what's your problem with him, I mean?
The hedgehog turned, keeping his back toward Tails as he bent to pick up more wrappers. Carl's property was near the edge of town, and a lot of the teens tended to wander out here to hang out, which meant a lot of discarded trash, perfect for keeping a person busy, so he didn't have to face a certain fox.
Why do we have a problem with him?
Sonic asked, working hard to keep his voice steady and light.
Sure, we got off on the wrong foot, but we're past that. Well, it's a little pummeling between friends, right? He's the only guy who could hope to keep up with me and know how it feels to lose everything. And look how well he turned out. So
He turned to toss his handful of trash into the bag and was met with a confused Kit.
Don't you like Knuckles?
The boy asked, his voice soft.
I thought we were all friends now.
we are, Min. He helped take down Robotic. Why wouldn't we be friends?
Tails shook his head, that expression of confusion deepening.
You're hinting word around him like you're mad at him. I noticed it this morning, too.
Sonic cursed himself for not keeping this under better control. He supposed Tails was more sensitive to these types of things, thanks to how he was treated back in his village. And Knuckles had also picked up on his negativity. What exactly was the correct term for it? Jealousy seemed appropriate, but not quite right. It didn't quite fit the heavy feeling he got in his chest when the Echidna spoke, when he did something Sonic couldn't.
Sonic!
Tails said, his soft voice breaking into the Hedgehog's thoughts.
Do you want Knuckles to leave?
The Hedgehog's eyebrows shot up, and he looked at the kid in shock. The younger boy stood with his arms pulled tightly toward his chest, face full of worry and chewing his lower lip. The question floated in Sonic's mind, and the kid's unspoken, underlying fear surfaced right behind it. If Sonic suddenly didn't want Knuckles here, it was just a matter of time before he didn't want Tails here, either.
Tails.
The Hedgehog said, his voice gentle and kind.
They're gonna chew their lip right off if you don't cool it.
The fox laughed slightly, and his smile gave Sonic's heart a squeeze.
No, I don't want us to leave.
He leaned in closer, placing a firm hand on the kid's shoulder.
I don't want either of you to leave.
But you're acting like you don't like him.
Tails said, his brow furrowed. Head.
Like you don't want him here?
Sonic pulled a breath in, giving the kid a nod.
You're right, I've been word around the guy. Maybe it's just because he's so different. He doesn't get my jokes, is so quick to anger, and doesn't seem to know how to relax and have fun.
He rubbed the back of his neck.
It's a little awkward, honestly.
He seemed so much more mature than Sonic, more in control of himself. Sonic hated feeling like a little kid, and when Knuckles was around, that's how he felt. Because the Echidna was so much better, Tails' smile returned, and he nodded.
I know what you mean. He can be a bit much, sometimes a little scary, but I don't think he's doing anything on purpose. He's been on the run, traveling throughout the galaxy for a long time. I've heard rumors about the great Echidna warrior Knuckles for as long as I can remember. This has to be a big change for him, especially since he's found the Master Emerald. That was his quest for most of his life. It's gotta be hard now that it's over.
I'll talk to him. Tails.
Sonic said, giving the boy a real smile.
You're right. This whole thing is probably hardest on him. I guess I never thought of it that way.
If any can make things better, you can.
The fox kid said, smiling. Sonic smiled back.
I don't know about that. My mouth can get away from me sometimes.
But you're the fastest creature in the galaxy.
It was close enough to the truth that Sonic didn't feel guilty in telling Tails this, because Knuckles was a little awkward to be around. The guy didn't understand half of what anyone said, and carried himself like some stiff stick in the mud. These were all good enough reasons to be uncomfortable around the Echidna, so it didn't matter that he didn't tell Tails he felt inferior. That was the word he was looking for. He felt inferior to Knuckles because the older boy seemed so much better at everything. Better behaved, better patient, better protector. Sonic blinked at that, and looked toward Knuckles. The Echidna stood with Carl near the firewood stack, and Carl hunkered down to speak with him. The Hedgehog had not considered the fact that Knuckles' lifelong quest had ended. The boy must feel so lost about what happens next. He was on a strange planet, with strange people, and no clue on how to interact with any of them. And the strange, recurring anger from the first person to offer him real friendship on this planet probably wasn't helping. Guilt slumped into his belly, and he felt sick to his stomach. What a horrible, selfish person he was. Tails said with a laugh.
You'll catch it easy.
The hedgehog laughed back.
The fox's jokes, not bad, little buddy.
The two laughed together, finally getting back to their trash gathering. About half an hour later, and all Carl's chores were done. His yard was clean, firewood stacked, and Knuckles had helped remove a few dead trees closest to his trailer. The old man had repaid the boys with cold sodas, which had been a hit with two of the three. Knuckles wasn't a fan of the fizz.
It feels as though my mouth is being attacked.
He said, placing the soda can away from him. He stuck his tongue out and shook his head.
Like insects swarming.
Sonic chuckled.
Can't say I thought about it like that, but I can see the similarities.
He downed the rest of his can and chucked it into the trash before letting loose a loud belch.
Pardon me.
Tails sipped his slowly.
Well, I like it. It's so different than anything back home. Are there other flavors?
Absolutely.
Sonic said, getting to his feet and stretching.
Orange root beer.
He cast a side eye at Knuckles.
Grape.
The Echidna arched an eyebrow. He pulled his lips tight.
Then perhaps
He said, sitting taller.
grapes don't go with everything.
That drew a real laugh out of the hedgehog, who zipped over and playfully punched Knuckles in the shoulder. Laugh out.
Nice one, big guy.
Despite the bad blood between them earlier, Knuckles smiled.
I am learning.
Yes, you are.
Sonic said, fetching his library book from Carl's front steps.
Stick with me, worry dude, and I'll teach you everything I know about sarcasm, comedy, and the ultimate comeback. We'll have you snarking with the best of them in no time.
Knuckles only smiled. He didn't know what most of those words meant, but the hedgehog's good mood was infectious.
You boys were a big help today.
Carl said, sitting on a large upturned log.
I appreciate all you did.
No, sweet Carl.
Sonic said, tucking the book under his arm.
Glad to help. I won't even tell Donut Lord about the whole pulling a shotgun on kids thing, but seriously, don't do that again.
Maybe call before you sneak out of the woods next time, Blue Devil.
The man said, arching an eyebrow.
Never know what else is lurking out there.
Nothing, Carl. Nothing is lurking out there, except maybe bears.
You don't know that.
I lived out there for the better part of 10 years, I think I do.
Sure, maybe nothing was out there then.
The old man said, gesturing toward the trees.
But who knows what could be out there now?
Sure, okay.
The hedgehog said, giving his eyes a little roll.
But afraid it's time to bid our farewell. Carl, my man.
He held out his hand to the old man.
Gotta show these guys around town.
Stay away from the government people.
Carl said, shaking the boy's hand.
Can't trust them, and tell your folks I said hey.
Sonic's eye twitched at that, just a tad, but he just nodded.
Will do.
Thank you for the Sonic, Mr. Carl.
Tails said, throwing his can in the trash.
It was very good.
Take care of yourself, Kit, and remember, don't listen to what anyone says. You're all right.
The boy nodded, and Knuckles moved closer, his hand out.
Farewell, Elder Carl. I enjoyed our chat, and will remember your knowledge.
Carl gave a little laugh as he reached for the boy's hand.
Well, if you can put anything to use, I'm glad to help.
Wait, no.
Sonic called, zipping over and grabbing the older boy's hand. The two looked at him.
Knuckles, I've been meaning to tell you. You squeeze too hard in handshakes.
The Echidna raised an eyebrow.
Too hard.
If you squeeze Carl's hand like you did with the rest of us, you'll break it. Just ease up on the grip.
Knuckles gave a slight nod and focused on gripping the old man.
Are you injured?
The boy asked. Carl shook his head.
Nah, I'm alright, but I could feel the strength in ya. The Blue Devil's right. You could hurt someone if you're not careful.
Good job, Knux.
Sonic said, giving him a friendly slap on the back.
Just keep that in mind for the future, okay?
The Echidna nodded.
Okay. Man, let's move out.
The boys gave Carl a little wave as they re-entered the trees, heading closer to the main part of town.